Good evening and welcome to our speaker's situation here tonight. We call it Election Speakout, and I'm John Killing. I was elected to Gresham City Council a couple of years ago, and so tonight we're here again with Dick Strathern, who is looking to return to City Council. We're going to be a little more informal tonight, Dick, and I was wondering, there are a lot of undecided voters, I think, this year in Oregon and in Gresham as well. Tell me, what would you say to them? Why should they elect you, or what are the issues?
Well, I think the biggest single issue that has emerged in my mind over the past 5 or 6 weeks is the citizens' ability to understand a hoax. And I'm going to read a statement here because I think two major questions in this campaign have emerged. Will the Citizen Initiative campaign 26-141 prevail against special interests and City Hall and the hoax perpetuated by those who designed the election system to control the electorate for their special needs and the economic welfare of special interests? It was only late in the campaign, after much discussion and argumentation and debate, did the realization begin to hit the citizens that the Gresham form of at-large election system was much worse than they originally thought, as people discovered this issue of voting for a position and not directly for councilors, which further dilutes their voice and vote beyond what anybody anticipated. Gresham voters now realize that they do not get to pick their top 3 out of a pool. The way it's designed, it makes that impossible, and that's really how most at-large elections are run. So we're trying like mad to close this information gap between now and the election day itself, because a lot of people are only now hitting that realization as they think it through. And I think we will prevail. The general feeling is once they understand that, it's a no-brainer in terms of how they're going to vote.
Well, it's been that way since 1986, and I personally think we've lost a lot of time in different areas of the city as we've grown. It's really difficult. It's a volunteer job. We have whether we're retired or not, people are busy, and there's a lot of time, as you know, devoted to city council and to city issues. And so it's important to recognize there's talent throughout this community and leadership that can be developed, and we need to find that. And I don't see how we can do that when we have a handful of neighborhoods that over and over folks are elected from. I think that we are not so elite as to think that there can't be other voices out there that we should be developing. So tell me about the signature gathering, the reaction of City Council.
I'll be honest, the biggest surprise to me was what I thought was the overt and overreaction on the part of City Council, on the part of the Mayor's office, and the part of special interests while we were gathering signatures in a citizen petition where they did everything they could to scuttle that. The good news was I actually thought it got us 400 signatures that we may not have gotten had they not come out in such a negative fashion. It was also during that period that my opponent, President Eccles, released a letter to the press, which, to say the least, was completely untrue, was falsified, and it was an attempt on her part to confuse the citizens, again, so they wouldn't sign the petition. Well, they signed it. We got 1,800 endorsements, and now it's on the ballot, and now the citizens are going to make that decision, not special interests, not Dick Strathern, not the Mayor's office, the citizens of Gresham.
Yeah, and you're right. I really feel like the endorsements we have are from the citizens of Gresham. We have a lot of other endorsements, obviously, but it's the people. It's the one-on-one. It's been so gratifying to go around the neighborhoods and to hear people say something like, "Well, I thought we already had districts," or they'll get into a particular problem. They'll say, "I've tried everything with City Hall I can, but I don't know who to talk to." And doesn't it make common sense? That you would know who is elected in your area that actually lives there, that would know the significance of some of the problems you have right there. I mean, it's so common, it's right in front of our face, and yet there are so many in leadership that don't see it, or they're just in denial. I don't know which it is.
Well, I think the reality is there's no way any councilor can represent the entire city. That's the mayor's job. districts would give them the opportunity to have their own dedicated counselor who they could hold accountable, who would be their voice in council chambers and would be extremely familiar with the neighborhoods in his district or her district. And guess what? They would be extremely familiar to him or her. And they would, I would tell you right now, counselors' attendance would improve significantly. You wouldn't have all this calling in the council meetings that we see now, or absenteeism at a level, because people would demand accountability. They wouldn't stand for that. I thought the biggest joke I saw was in the Oregonian saying that the people would lose their authority. Yep. This is what blows my mind. They have no authority right now with the way council is structured. There's no way to hold the council accountable. So this is going to change.
Well, part of
their voice is going to come back.
Absolutely, and part of it is that, you know, in some instances on council, being on the council, I know that there is at least some phone-in representation, and, you know, I think that even though it's a volunteer situation, I think that citizens should expect that their city councils will be at the meetings, and that they will participate in those meetings and not do it by phone. And if you're going to do it by phone, I don't think that you should really be involved in city council. We do have obligations, and if there's work or a job, then I think that if that's the priority, then I think it's time to step aside and let someone else fill in.
Well, the biggest gripe, John, has been from the citizens is that the concentration of councilors is from one location in the city. In fact, a majority of the council resides in one single neighborhood. The question they say, do we want democracy for one neighborhood, or do we want it for the entire city of Gresham? That's what I'm hearing. And
you know, and there's been, you know, I think people are really they're getting overrun with all these ads, and oh my gosh, you know, and there's a lot of negativity. And I know it sounds like, you know, that we're being you know, resentful or negative on this issue because we want to get you reelected and we want to have districts. But you know, it's kind of like David versus Goliath, and I think that's part of the problem. We're not trying to be that way. But you know, frankly, there's been so much money that is spent in this campaign against districts and you know, against your campaign that it's mind-boggling. You know, there's some races that not these, but just for the Senate race out here is over $500,000. Is probably, you know, approaching $750,000 for heaven's sakes. So again, we want to get it down to the level of just talking, you know, one-on-one and in groups to folks, you know, saying, look, we want to have districts. It's a way to go. We want to have Dick Strathern back on city council, to have an individual that is so involved in the city and really cares, you know, about what's going on. You know, so what tell me whether it's any particular area of the city, but let's focus just on Rockwood for a minute. But there's been a couple of significant things that have happened there with contacts you've made or Facebook.
I'm glad you brought that up, John. The biggest surprise, most pleasant surprise, has been the fact that on my Facebook, I have about 550 people. And in the last 3 weeks, 200 people have come on that Facebook from the Latino community, several of them representing organizations. So if anything has come out of this, it's beginning to wake up that Rockwood community, that people have to take responsibility and get involved. The other good news was 3 of the 4 candidates who spoke at the debate the other day, and by the way, these debates are coming up. It's very important that everybody watch them. But 3 of the 4 councilors in the debate came out and endorsed districts. That was a tremendous breakthrough. So the change is coming. It's on its way.
Well, that's fantastic. And as we close tonight, as we get to that point, I want to say that my grandson Liam is 4 going on 5, will be 5 November the 4th. And he's going to be voting in 13 years. So how do you see Gresham, you know, with your leadership? Where do you think Gresham's going to be headed? What, you know, with what you want to do and with districts and so on, what are you thinking?
Well, as a city of over 100,000, I think what we'll see, districts is the first step. And I think we'll see a streamlining of our government. We'll probably see it moving to a strong mayor-type structure. When I talked to the mayors of Salem and Eugene, it was quite interesting to see how the mayor's role was quite different with districts than it is at large. He really has a job to do when he has districts, because it's his responsibility to focus on the city and make sure that team plays well for the city. And it was interesting in Salem, the mayor gets voted up every 2 years. The councilor's 4. And they said, well, that's his job to make sure that council's functioning effectively.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's great to have you here tonight, and you know, I'd love to be working with you on City Council. We've talked about that over the years. There could be some great camaraderie that way, you know, where you know, people support the city in that way of really wanting to have representation from all parts of the city. Mm-hmm. And none of us are, you know, you and I are not so elite that we can't find talent otherwise. And we really want to develop the next area of leadership, and we think that's going to be coming soon, right?
Well, great. Thank you, John.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for the interview tonight.